It's fucking about like pigs and hockey and beer and stuff. Did you tape that? So hi, my name's Jim McEwen. I wrote a book called Fearnoch, and today we're here with family and friends at Dunrobin Community Centre to celebrate the launch of my novel. And good to see you, Jeff. It is about the decline and struggles of rural Canada. It's set in a town on the outskirts of Ottawa. This is really overwhelming. So many people that I love are here. Everyone I love is here. Everyone has worries, gripes. They bicker a lot. They might be worried about they're in jail, their farm is dying, their hockey team keeps losing, they can't have a baby, they fall in love at the dump, but they're worried the person doesn't love them back. So they're trapped. They're inescapably separate, but inescapably together in a small town. And they got to work it out in there together. Did the hockey part ring true?
I loved it.
Okay. No, so that was based on the barn across, but then I borrowed a bit from it when Connor telling me, so you do know.
So we do know part.
I just had a framework, and I just wanted to pack so many different little bits I've picked up over the years. Something funny my friend said, something my dad told me when he was a kid. Just tried to save it all up and put it in beautiful sentences and just stuff it in there so it's almost like a big, well, small, not very long, but a loot bag full of just beautiful little bits. In chapter 1. And remember, it's inspired by Dunrobin, but not exactly Dunrobin. And there's more swearing. It seems people are very upset at each other a lot. And I think most of that stuff is probably, if you could see the person you're really upset at, see them through the window in their house cooking supper, you see, okay, they're a human too. We might disagree on some stuff, but really, we could probably get along. That was a big inspiration. I was up tree planting, I was exhausted, and I thought, if I ever had a book launch, I want it to be the old Dunrobin Community Centre with Labatt 50 and some chips maybe, and that's it. And then it actually happened. So, all because of Mom. Yeah. So, thank you, Mom. Please buy it and read it. And thank you. Thank God. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. In chapter 1. The day was done, another one done, and John took off his hat and went out and stood in his road. Sunglow slid a pink meniscus on the hill while he looked down at his land. Light left from the field and bush. Light left out purple and bruised, and the birds left too. John was the sixth John Young husband in his line of John Young husbands, and he lived on 6 Line Road. He stood out there in his road and remembered that day the pigs got free. He was a boy then, under the elm trees and helping his dad fix the fence by the road. One moment there were no pigs, and the next moment there were many pigs. The elm trees were all dying down the fence line. Ellum, his dad said. Ellum and also Philum were 2 syllables in his father's dialect, which was also dying. And all the Ellums stretched their thirsty, cancerous fingers up and up. It was a cedar fence with little cedar teepees every 10 feet filled with rocks. They ran 3 logs between these teepees, tapped in long nails, and lashed it all together with wire and pliers. Bark particles and larva bits and those things stuck in the sweat under young John's t-shirt. He bled under his nails as he pried up rocks. He dragged around the deadfall, scraped himself on the wire ends, and twisted the pliers with his tongue sticking out. He worried he wasn't working hard enough. John the Fifth was quiet as he worked. And then the pigs, they made their impression on the land. An ungulate orgy descended and celebrated, casting noise and dust. They trotted, chortled, screamed, busted the fence, knocked John into the ditch, maybe a dozen of them, grinning beasts with their ears pinned back. They were free. The old farmhand from across the road scurried around after the pigs and was not unlike a pig himself in his movements. His great plaid stomach shook out over his pants as he emptied all his swear words onto the road. John listened and remembered from the ditch. Then he tucked in his head in his knees and lay in the long grass when the pigs flocked and funneled back. But his father caught a pig, flipped it on its side, and the animal was calmer. Of course, tackling pigs had been a large part of his own childhood. He helped the farmhand load his truck full of the objecting pigs. "You need a good fence," his dad said. Another day, John remembered. He was in high school then and deeply upset about something. Maybe he was getting cut from the AA All-Ottawa Valley hockey team, or because it was his fault the hay got wet, or it was Anna Berube putting a note in the hood of his hoodie in drama class that said she was sorry she couldn't go to the semi-formal with him, but to save her a dance. Maybe it was all three of these things lined up together. He walked in circles in his socks in the basement, rubbing his head and didn't know what to do. "I don't like it," he said. "Oh, I don't like it at all." "Don't like it," said his dad. He was over in the tool room and thought John was talking to him. "What?" said John, who didn't know he had been talking. "You're not going to like everything," his dad said. "When have I ever said you're going to like everything? Or if it matters if you like something?" He was eating a cookie. He bit it, held it up and frowned at it, then replaced it in the tin. "Do you like that cookie?" John asked. "Doesn't matter," said his dad. John remembered back through the dark in his field. That's the first little bit. Thank you. And then we have a little hockey game. Some of the characters play on a hockey team, and they play their dreaded French-Canadian rivals who always beat them. Okay, so they're in the hockey dressing room, the boys. John stood then, shirtless, wearing hockey pants and flip-flops, and attempted his speech. He said this was our barn, the lads from Fearnoch, and the rock and the lads from the other side of the river embarrassed us in our barn. Pucks on net, bodies on net, we're going deep, stay out of the box. Someone runs you, take a number, we'll get him later. Safe as death, $15 in the kitty there, please. And on he went like that. There were about 4 Codys and 3 Corys on the team. They thought about the game, which they were sure to lose, but also about jobs, divorces, if they were getting fat, why their kid pushed other kids at daycare, and over all the private hopes and troubles of these men who still thought they were pretty good at hockey and took it too seriously, the arena arched, with beer punch cards in the canteen, a Chuck-a-Puck sign-up sheet, advertisements on the boards for Fearnoch Granite and Tile, Fearnoch Truck Repair, Happy Slices Pizza, Valley Rent Right, aggregates, fertilizers, and animal feeds, and by the score clock, a water-damaged portrait of the Queen. The players looped around the ice, stretching their groins and exhaling great refrigerated clouds. Then the Quebecers in their blue and white sweaters put up 4 goals in the first period, and Kirby wondered why they were even in the same division. Composer of the massacre was a slick new French center, La Flamboise, it said on his sweater, and his skill level humiliated the boys regarding their own skill levels. And just to make everything even more annoying for the Fearnoch bench, La Flamboise ripped through their defense in white skates, white gloves, and ringette pants. John caught his own skate in a rut by the Zamboni gate. He felt sick, felt his femur threatening to unhook out of his pelvis. Mikey sent John what he thought was a very clever and cute pass, but it was soft as muffins, and a Pontiac forward picked it off and then scored with a very fancy Dan Barry. Mikey hit the post and the crossbar and knew it was not a night for glory. His hockey pants were in tatters, like he sat on a bomb, because after the game once someone dropped a cigarette into his hockey bag and started a small fire. There's some swears in this. Is that okay?
Cover your ears, Henry.
Okay. So dropped a cigarette in his hockey bag and started a small fire. "What am I?" he shouted, scrambling to cover someone much better than him. "Left wing? I'm right wing? Who the fuck is playing center?" "I don't know. Fucking just play hockey," John said, and got whistled for slashing. Kirby scored a goal, as shocked as anyone when a shot from the point sang in and deflected off his penis and in, and he celebrated by lying on his side in pain. That made it 7-1. But by then, the puck was largely forgotten and the game veered into cultural warfare. A French forward cross-checked John into the boards from behind, and Mikey got angry. This was his captain after all, so he gave the forward a tap on the ankle and shoved him when he turned around. And Mikey got the only penalty on the play. Once he got out of the box, he hacked at the French goalie's trapper just after the whistle went. This was unsporting of him, sure, but he was frustrated. "Désolé," he said. "Pardon, tout suite," and was promptly struck from behind by a cross-check of such magnitude and significance he imagined later that night, wincing as he got into bed. Its energy had originated on the plains of Abraham and gathered ferocity along the centuries, waiting in the DOCs and patateries of Quebec for a chance to come across the river and find the proper Anglophone recipient. He wheezed on his knees by the net and felt his kidney as it exploded and was draining into his abdominal cavity. A giant from the Pontiac defense stood over him. Kirby wanted to help his friend. On the drive home, he thought he should have cross-checked the defenseman. It would have been the right thing. But he really didn't want to hurt anyone, and anyway, he froze looking up at this exhaling mastodon Quebecois blue liner. John did not freeze and pushed past Kirby and cross-checked the defenseman. The man turned and dropped the mitts, and John dropped the mitts, and they both fell immediately on top of Mikey, who hadn't yet figured out if he could stand or not, but was endeavoring to, because as he'd been taught, hockey players never stay down. Kirby picked up the gloves and sticks off the ice and skated them over to the penalty box. When the game was over, 9-1 it was, both teams shook hands at center ice. The big defenseman patted Mikey on the chest and said, "You will never beat the dark side." John said to Larac, the French captain, "Sorry I called you a pea soup and a Gatonese. I was angry." Larac offered his regrets in Gatonese for all the things he called John. They knew each other from midget hockey camp. Then they had their beer and drove home, all under the same moon that spilled onto the only real intersection of Fearnoch. So that's the... Just a little bit more. This is sort of describing a bit of the history of the town. And remember, it's inspired by Dunrobin, but not exactly Dunrobin. And there's more swearing. Chapter 4. There is little you could say that would distinguish Fearnoch from any other small eastern Ontario town. A great fire licked across it, and the Great War took half its young men. It wasn't prominent, wasn't built in the bones of an 1812 War of 1812 outpost like nearby Guthrie Place. The town had its brawls in the beginning, like all the others, the collision of tribes. An assortment of folks the rest of the world didn't have time for and marooned away up here. Scots-Irish, Irish Catholics, Orangists, anti-Orangists, French Canadians, all coming down the Stagecoach Trail, all raising and drinking their rums. Another toast, filling pre-industrial taverns and hotels with their oaths, then going outside and beating each other with sticks. They bloodied one another over canal dredging jobs until it didn't matter who was who, and besides, you needed your neighbor across the fence line to help get the goddamn hay in, no matter what starving old world shire their genes came from. There was a church, then another church, a schoolhouse, a slaughterhouse for a while, a community center with an outdoor rink. Silos and rogue white pines salient from the thickets. It was a small quilt out on the line. Fearnoch Road, 4th, 5th, and 6th lines running east-west, Archibald A. McHugo Side Road, and Guthrie Boundary Road cutting them north-south. People enjoyed hockey, bingo, and euchre no more or less than any other town along that stretch. Old men in their trucks with their seat belts clipped on the seat behind them stopped in the middle of the road to talk to each other until someone honked behind them. Every summer, more cyclists than the last, coming out from Ottawa in packs. All the gear not getting over onto the shoulder enough. Farms and bungalows were laid out from the one intersection with a street light now, and angled parking spots that had on its four corners a plaza with a gas station and a convenience store, a defunct cheese factory, a field, and a field. It was a 1-hour drive east to Ottawa, but they were going to put in a new highway which would change things. John loved Fearnoch, got very romantic about it. Kirby was embarrassed by it. Mikey was trying not to think anything bad about anything. And Anna was afraid of it because everyone there expected her to be someone important. In some places there are kinkajous or narwhals or ocelots or bioluminescent atoll skinny dipping or mounted falconeers hunting golden foxes with golden goshawks. How do you say that? Or walking boardwalks and holding someone's hand, feeling the rings and the sweat suctioning, looking at this hand, and maybe you'll fuck tonight, sweat everywhere with your clothes together on the floor, but, that is, after ice cream at Coney Island. Fearnoch is not any of those places. Although the sun and moon still visit, like in all the other places, and to all the people and creatures in them, farming, falconing, swimming, crying, fucking. And also there are many places just like Fearnoch, with swamps and dead farms and dead elms hanging over the rusted Quonset huts, and lawns uncut around ancient satellite dishes and umbrella drying racks. But Fearnoch is still a place, a piece of the planet, even if no one knew where it was, and even if Peace once called it a cousin fucking colonial cow shithole. Okay, is that good or is it? Yeah. I can read one more little funny bit and then maybe that'll be good, eh? So this is a part that I like about Mikey and John and their friend Mush, who we will meet later. Once John and Mikey both got dumped over the same weekend. "I'm done," said John. "I'm done." Mikey only stared into the hills. They paddled to Champlain Island and unfolded their camping chairs out on the sandbar. In the rippled sand and zebra mussels, they reveled in their sadness, poured it all over, argued about who was sadder, let their beer cans float away to the sun. Then they were silent a while, defeated and out of applicable words. And then one of Mikey's chair legs buckled and snapped, and he was pitched onto his side in the river. He lay just as he'd fallen, motionless and resigned in an inch of water. "Just leave me here," he said. John made no indication he'd even noticed the change in how Mikey was seated. He watched the horizon with his beer on his lap, then got up, walked 2 steps away, and arced a mighty and long piss towards the ripped-up sky and sun that died and bled in the river. At this time, mush floated around the point, directly in front of and very close to John and his humongous piss. "Great," said Mush. He was winding in his fishing rod, and it appeared he was sitting on a very small or even invisible boat, or that his pants were, in fact, a boat. "What is that?" said Mikey. He sat up in the water and put his hand over his eyes. "Are your pants a boat?" Mush kicked himself out of a camo floating chair with hip waders built into the bottom of it. It was a chair pants boat for anglers. He moored up his pants fish chair boat, then came ashore and took some of their beer. He drank many of them and then shared his advice. "This is what you have to do. Meet a girl you really like." "Yes," said John. "You spend time together and it's great and nice." "Okay," said Mikey. "And you both really like each other, eh? And it's going really well, then?" "Yeah," said John. "Then you just fucking dump her." John and Mikey were quiet. "Out of nowhere, fucking dump her, bud," said Mush in his indefensibly bad sunglasses, emitting urgent, greedy suckling sounds on the beer can. "What?" said Mikey. "But that's all I want," said John. "I'm sorry, you gotta dump her. Nothing is better for your confidence." That, to Mush, was the way forward. Mikey made a splash lying back in the water. He thought he'd leave his head there in the mud and weeds for a while. "Pontoon pantaloons," John said, smiling at the pants boat. It got dark, and still they were on the island. And I'll stop there. Thank you.